Attack drones have become the dominant killer on the front lines in Ukraine, The Sun reports. Western officials' figures suggest that 8 out of 10 soldiers killed or wounded were attacked remotely by devices piloted by young soldiers, often many miles from the front lines, the article says. Citing officials, it is noted that drones have replaced traditional artillery strikes on targets and now accounts for 70 to 80% of losses among Russian and Ukrainian troops. Officials also added that Ukraine is being attacked by at least 100 drones daily, about one every 15 minutes. These kamikaze drones are cheap to produce and very effective. They can hover in a specific area before being assigned a target to attack. As former British Army intelligence officer Phil Ingram noted, it is clear that drones have changed the nature of modern warfare. These astonishing figures show that drones will play a significant role in all future military campaigns. British defence experts warn that the nature of warfare is rapidly changing, calling for the UK to start building its own squadrons of attack drones. Ukrainian drone operators are now so effective that they have become a prime target for Russian counterstrikes. If they spot a drone operator, everything comes at us, said drone pilot Sergeant Major Vasily. In addition, it is noted that Ukraine has developed Trojan horse drones containing computer viruses. They are designed to help reveal the location of Russian drone operators. It is also reported that from January to March of this year alone, Russia launched 10,500 glide bombs at Ukraine. It is emphasized that the Russians have turned these so-called dumb bombs into precision weapons. Last year, Russia announced it had begun developing a new glide bomb called the Drel, based on cluster munitions that are banned in more than 100 countries. Several teams of Ukrainian developers have created an anti-aircraft drone that will work against Russian Shaheeds. This was stated on air by the chairman of the NGO Aerorazvedka Yaroslav Gonchar on Ukrainian radio. He noted that our developers are working in all directions, including to neutralize not only attack drones, but also reconnaissance drones of the Russians, and the direction of neutralizing the threat when it is already in the air. This is not a trivial task. All these Orlans, Supercam, Zala, but Shahed is a different class, and the technology of anti-aircraft drones does not fit Shahed head-on. He explained and added that Ukrainian developers are working to ensure such a capability. The Ukrainians have made an anti-aircraft drone that will work against the Shahed, and we are already quite close. This is happening. Regarding the destruction of the source of the threat itself, it is both dispersed and deep behind enemy lines, he said.
The Bulgarian Prime Minister attended a ceremony on Sunday in which a new military jet imported from the US was unveiled to bring the country's air force up to NATO standards. According to Associated Press, the 16 new F-16 military jets were displayed in Graf Ignativo. This remarkable fighter jet stands as a symbol of the strategic partnership we share with the United States, a partnership that extends beyond defense into the field of energy, providing structural guarantees for our national security and enhancing the capabilities of our armed forces, said Rosen Zeliazkov. 8 of them were bought for $1.3 billion in July 2019. Plans initially called for the first planes to arrive in Bulgaria in 2023, but the coronavirus pandemic will delay their delivery until the end of this year. In 2022, the Bulgarian government signed another contract with American aerospace company Lockheed Martin for a second batch of 8 new F-16 fighter jets. Bulgaria, which joined NATO in 2004, has ever since sought to update its military's air fleet of aging Soviet-made MiG-29 jets, but financial problems forced repeated postponements. Amid Russia's ongoing war on Ukraine, Bulgaria has been relying on assistance from other NATO countries to fulfill its air policing obligations as an alliance member.
Перспективата пред България е перспектива като член на Европейския съюз, член на НАТО, с много ясна визия за неотклонение от демократичните ценности, за неотклонение от върховенството на закона и защитата на човешките права, по начина, в който ние сме направили нашия цивилизационен избор преди десетилетия. Този прекрасен боен самолет е символ на стратегическото партньорство, което имаме с Съединените щати. Стратегическо партньорство, което не е само в сферата на отбраната, но в сферата на енергетиката, което създава структурни гаранции за нашата национална сигурност, създава гаранции за повишаване на капацитетът на нашите въоръжени сили.
Iran and the United States will hold more negotiations next week over Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program, Iranian state television reported Saturday at the end of the first round of talks between the two countries since U.S. President Donald Trump returned to the White House. According to Associated Press, Iranian state TV said U.S. Mideast envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi briefly spoke in the presence of the Omani Foreign Minister at the end of the talks, marking a direct interaction between the two nations locked in decades of tensions. American officials did not immediately acknowledge the Iranian reports, which Tehran likely speeded out to its public ahead of a possible Trump post on social media. But declaring that the two sides spoke face-to-face, even if briefly, suggests the negotiations went well. The talks began at around 3:30 p.m. local. The two sides spoke for over 2 hours at a location on the outskirts of Oman, ending the talks around 5:50 p.m. local time. The convoy believed to be carrying Witkoff returned to Muscat, the capital of Oman, before disappearing into traffic around a neighborhood that is home to the U.S. Embassy. The stakes of the negotiations couldn't be higher for the two nations closing in on half a century of enmity. Trump has repeatedly threatened to unleash airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear program if a deal isn't reached. Iranian officials increasingly warn that they could pursue a nuclear weapon with their stockpile of uranium enriched to near weapons-grade levels. AP journalists saw a convoy believed to be carrying Witkoff leave the Omani Foreign Ministry on Saturday afternoon and then speed off into the outskirts of Muscat. The convoy went into a compound and a few minutes later, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghi wrote on the social platform X that the indirect talks had begun.
Iran and the United States will meet again to negotiate over Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. That's the word tonight in Muscat, Oman, after over 2 hours of negotiations between Iran and the United States. The U.S. was represented by Steve Witkoff. The Iranians were represented by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Interestingly enough, the two men supposedly talked directly to each other at the end of the meeting. All this is coming from Iranian state media. We haven't heard yet from the Trump White House. But this matches up with what both sides said going into these talks, that they were looking for some sort of deal. The Iranians want those crushing economic sanctions lifted. The Americans want to see restrictions on Iran's nuclear program, and tensions in the wider Middle East that have been inflamed by the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip tamped down. So it's likely we're going to see more negotiations, but what's going to happen next is going to depend on the diplomats at the table.